What's up, guys? It's Gardy B with the Jenkins and Jonez show. As always, I'm here with my good internet buddies, Dragonfly Jones, a.k.a. Tyler.
What's up, guys?
Jethro Jenkins, a.k.a. John.
What's up, bubbas? And if you fuck with us, you want to see more of our content, please jump on YouTube and subscribe to our channel.
Let's talk about franchise volume employee, Draymond Green. The once universally respected, admired position of podcaster is under scrutiny for the first time.
Under siege!
Podcasters are not being respected for the first time in human history.
In a shocking turn of developments, people are questioning the necessity of podcasts for the first time. Well, we touched on it. Dre got asked at the press conference last night by a reporter, does he think that the Celtics are getting X's and O's insights into the Warriors game plans from his podcast? John has rolled his eyes a record 3 times in asking of this question. But first of all, your thoughts on that. Draymond was clearly very bothered by that question. He definitely went off on the dude a little bit. But what was your response to that? That's ludicrous to me personally, but I don't know. Maybe you see it different.
Yeah, I think that was legitimately an insult to Draymond's intelligence to say that he would be out here giving away intel in the finals, right? Giving away, detail X's and O's. Like Draymond called him out and said, what have I said besides, Derek White, fucking Horford, and Marcus Smart, we need to give them more difficult looks. Like, what the fuck is so, top secret, covert file about that? And I get that. I think that, it's all fun and games to clown about the podcast. And it's some good jokes. Like, yeah, he's going to record at the halftime knowing Draymond. Like, the podcast jokes are cool. But once you get into the whole questioning, is Draymond focused here? Questioning, is he giving away valuable intel? I think that's when we need to pump our brakes. It's a fucking podcast. He's talking for an hour, bro. That's not distracting any of his focus from this. He's not giving away any high, fucking intel here. So like I said, I think the jokes are totally fine, but when we start doing serious analysis and serious finger pointing here, that's when I'm like, we need to pump our brakes.
He made something really funny very annoying. And that is the problem with it. We were laughing at the fucking jokes. They were great. And then you come being serious in a very dumb way about something that you shouldn't be serious about. That was more frustrating. I want to just laugh at this shit because it's funny. Like you were saying, Tyler, the jokes are funny. When you get serious about something like that, questioning his integrity as a fucking basketball player. Is he, putting his team at risk of losing or not focused? The fuck? You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers out here posting lean. Okay, you know what I mean? on IG, and we worried about a podcast, a man's talking. I think the question is more this Draymond. I mean, we've seen him be really good in big moments, but is he at that point like we were talking about with Chris Paul and other players where he can't do it as much as consistently? You know what I mean? And as far as numbers, we haven't seen Draymond really put up the type of numbers that we thought he may need in order for them to win, in a while. So I just think it's just. I think he's maybe just not as good as he once was. And I think this size is giving him trouble. And that makes sense. And that's fine.
I definitely want to talk about I want to get back to making jokes about the performance. But before we do that, I did want to actually ask Jackson, do you mind hopping on, Jackson? Because I know you probably don't address this whatsoever on the Draymond Green podcast. But I'm curious for your take on this. Like, you're producing the pod. You're the one who's organizing the schedule. There are genuine verified basketball minds who are saying this podcast is a distraction.
Are they really saying? Oh, wait,
yes,
really?
as though there's not,
one Isaiah Thomas, Zeke.
I saw that.
Said it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're talking about one game every 3 days on the finals schedule here, where a dude is going to be recording a podcast for a half hour or something after their game. Like, to me, it's the same thing as saying the press conferences are a distraction or something. It's just part of his media obligations,
And he's talking basketball. It's not like he's not talking about the thing that he'll be doing or playing. He's not in it's not a totally different industry that's pulling him away from the sport that he plays. He's talking basketball. You know what I mean? And it's just talking. I think it's ridiculous. But
Tyler's right. Zeke said, the way he's playing is because he's not focused. And after Jackson chimes in, we talk about why he's playing the way he's playing.
I don't know if it's just not focused.
I totally agree with you. But Jackson, what do you think? I mean, it's kind of weird because they're talking about your podcast, even though it's obviously Dre's podcast. But you're the person who's making the podcast out of him talking. So what have you thought about all the chatter about all this stuff?
I think it's rather silly. Dre has said this before on the show, and he said it emphatically last night. Like, what is he supposed to be doing? Like, he's 32 or something. He's not going to the club. So he's already not doing probably the most distracting thing he could be doing. Especially when he's on the road. He's just sitting in a hotel room in Boston. He's the type of player, he said this before as well, he doesn't really sleep after games. Like, he's up until like 3-4 in the morning. His mind is just like racing about the game.
Understandably so.
Right. And so, like, what's he going to do? Like, he could like sit and watch game film, which he does anyways. Still going to do that. He does it the night, at least during the finals, we've been doing them the night of every single game. So that way it doesn't go into the next day when he has practice and film and media obligations. Like, he's actually actively doing the podcast in a way that is being the least distracting. A thing that's not distracting. He's doing it. He's using the time that he would just be sitting around watching TV at 2, like literally in Boston last night. It was 2 in the morning.
All right, let me cross-examine you. You've never logged on with Draymond and he's turned off film to talk to you. That's never happened, not even once.
He's never left the practice early to podcast with you, Jackson. Tell the truth.
Nah, he's cut the podcast short to get to film.
Of course he has.
That's the only thing that's ever happened like that.
It's so weird that we even have to have this conversation. It's the thirstiest fucking shit ever. We're thinking Draymond Green isn't doing everything he physically can to win a fucking chip. Draymond Green, I mean, he's one of the 5-10 people that I think we could never really question his effort. He's always his commitment. You know what I mean? It's just wow. And I don't think, like you said, like I was alluding to earlier, is like I don't think it's just that he's not focused. You know,
Tyler, do you have any further questions for this witness before we dismiss him?
No, I think it all comes back to how everyone believes if a professional athlete loses, he should just wallow in his misery in the dark and either just hop on the treadmill for 5 straight hours or hunker down with some film until the crack of dawn. And that's not how it has to be. You know what I mean? These are real life people. These are humans. These are people who, you know what I'm saying, who are still extremely dedicated, extremely focused on the task at hand. And they can cut out some time to be a human for a fucking hour and talk basketball on a podcast. You know what I mean? It goes back to that whole fucking flawed way of thinking that after a loss that these athletes can't, you know, be human. And I fucking hate that.
There's also like an almost S&M dynamic to it with basketball fans and sports fans that I hate, where it's like, ooh, yeah, he's talking honestly. Like, ooh, he's not just giving the same boring answers. I love this. Ooh, I love it. And then as soon as something goes wrong, it's like, because he's too worried about that podcast.
right. The fuck?
You know, it's like when it's the regular season, all this other stuff, everyone's excited about, oh, there's a guy communicating in this innovative way. Like, yeah, maybe this is actually with a guy like Draymond more interesting and honest than kind of fielding some of the dumb questions you see at press conferences. And then as soon as there's a moment to turn it into a like, fans are like punishing players for giving them what they want, right? It's like, oh, now you're like, once you lose, like Tyler said, you're supposed to be a robot and just be like, oh, well, we're going to get him on Friday. Yep. No, the crowd didn't bother me at all. We'll get him on Friday. And, you know, Draymond, I think he is what athletes are going to look more like over the upcoming years. They're saying in the way that everything in our economy and about our human lives is monetized in our economy. He is saying, and other athletes are saying, my honesty will come at a price. Someone signed me to do a podcast. I will hop on and say stuff that I'm not saying in the press conferences, and more power to him. Like, that's like athletes should have, it's their opinion, it's their voice. They should have the ability to monetize that in the way that I, as a sports writer, the sports writer is going to the press conference. We are monetizing those opinions that they have to sit there and respond to questions. Right. So to me, I think we've settled what the focus thing or not. But I do think when you have guys like Isaiah Thomas saying he's not focused, it's like it does become a real basketball question. What I would prefer to talk about, as John has alluded to, is Isaiah Thomas referring to grade school game Draymond Green for having a quadruple single yet
out
again.
there looking like a third grader. It's so wild though how all these sports fans suddenly turn into like your 60-year-old mom because you be on that damn phone all the time. Like,
You be on that Nintendo. Always on that damn Nintendo.
Go on that damn Nintendo.
Can't even pronounce Nintendo.
All the time. You put the damn phone down, baby. Come on, man.
Put the basketball down and pick a book up. That's what my mom used to be on me about. She was right though. I can't even lie.
Yeah. But shouts to Draymond. I saw the quote where he was like, "You motherfuckers are mad because you don't do the numbers the Draymond Green podcast does. I will always podcast.
You gonna get
You're gonna get this podcast.
Hey, and
I'll die for this podcast shit too, dog. Podcast is life. I am nothing without this podcast. Do you hear me? I will stand on that. I will die for Jenkins and Jonez, goddammit.
I turn this microphone off and I just shut down like a robot facing the wall and just stand there until the next time we go live.
I have no reason to live unless I'm podcasting.
They really expect people to catch an L and just sit there. You know what I mean? Don't do anything but like, what do we do as humans when we get down on something? We want to distance ourselves from or do something different, right? Why do we expect these players to do anything different? That's so weird to me. It's just so weird to me. It's so weird.